Any plans for this evening? Perhaps a game night?
Game over, man. It's game over.
Shut up. Play the game. Play it from your heart.
26 years ago, we started playing a little game. Now, we're all gonna sit down. We're gonna finish it.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
And here we go.
Love that intro. Worked pretty hard on that. Pretty proud of it. Welcome to episode 0 of Dice Camera Action. I'm Matt Cousineau, and with me is
Jason Tripp. Welcome.
So we wanted to throw this episode together and just kind of let folks know what we're all about and what to expect from Dice Camera Action. So Dice Camera Action is a mashup podcast about board games and movies. And we wanted to get together and do kind of an episode 0, an intro episode to let you know what to expect from us, what you're going to be getting overall out of Dice Camera Action, including videos, podcasts, etc. And have you guys get to know us a little bit as well, so that you have an idea of who we are, what our likes and dislikes are, and that sort of thing. So wanted to talk about, to kick off, why we're doing this or how this came about.
Yeah, well, Matt, actually, you reached out to me, tapped me on the shoulder. We've gotten to know each other a little bit through the board gaming community here in Sudbury, Ontario, where we live. And you had an idea, and it was neat because I'd considered a similar idea during the pandemic, went in a different direction with sort of a different YouTube channel. You said, what about doing a mashup podcast together, where we take a particular board game that we're fond of, or that's a hot board game, and we pair it with a thematically similar movie. And the majority of the podcast, maybe 2/3 of the podcast, is the board game conversation.
Right.
But then we sort of dovetail that with seamlessly a conversation about the film we've chosen to pair with the game. And so each episode will do that. We'll identify a board game. We'll do a review of the board game, talk about the type of board game, why we like it or dislike it. And then we'll pair that with a predetermined movie that we've chosen that seems to pair nicely with it.
Yeah, we figured there's, this is primarily aimed at board gamers, but we figured there's enough of an overlap. If you're a geek that loves board gaming, not everyone, but a huge percentage of those folks would also get into the geeky side of other things. Movies being obviously a hugely popular part of
or TV shows.
Of our culture. Yeah, the odd TV show we might sneak in there as well, for sure. I'm more the TV guy than you are, but I'll definitely drag you onto the TV side from time to time. Yeah, so we might, for example, pair, one of our plans for sure is to do Dune Imperium.
It's a good year for desert movies.
It is, yeah. So Dune Imperium, and obviously we would pair that with Denis Villeneuve's latest Dune movies. Probably do a Star Wars episode because we're both big Star Wars fans. We're probably going to do some non-IP pairings too. For example, Thunder Road Vendetta is one of my newer kind of favorite games that I'm having fun with. We'll pair that with like a Mad Max movie, for example. We might pair The Northman with Raiders of the North Sea, or like a Robin Hood movie or a medieval movie with like some of the West Kingdom games, for example. So these are just some ideas that we've thrown around. I don't know if we're going to do any of those specifically. But that's kind of the game plan. And
we should say, like, the target audience is primarily those in the board gaming industry and hobby.
For sure. Yeah.
So this is primarily for those board gamers who may or may not have an interest in movies as well, but maybe you're a movie fan and you're interested to get into the board game hobby. Hey, we welcome anyone to follow along, and hopefully at the end of the day this will grow your enthusiasm for one or both of these hobbies that we love so much.
For sure. So Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So as I mentioned, I'm in Sudbury, Ontario. That's where we're recording. That's where we live. I'm 46 years young. I am a father of 2 teenagers, a 16-year-old daughter, Michaela, 13-year-old Levi. I've been married for almost 19 years now to my wife, Sylvie, who's a high school teacher. By vocation, my primary vocation is I'm a pastor of a church. I do some chaplaincy work. I'm working on my doctoral studies. And when limited free time permits, get board games to the table or head out to the movie theater, of course, to watch some films. Like you, Matt, I'm a big sports fan as well. Kind of a weird, eclectic taste of the sports teams I cheer for.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball, big San Antonio Spurs fan. Those of you watching on the YouTube channel today will see I'm sporting my Baltimore Orioles hat. Football, I like the Buffalo Bills. Hockey, well, even though we disagree on our favorite teams, we can come together with board games. You're a big Maple Leafs fan. I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan. But hey, we can put our differences in sports aside
For sure.
for the sake of board games and movies. I coach and referee basketball. I like to play a lot of racket sports. I think I've traded my tennis racket for a pickleball racket now that I'm getting up there in age. And of course, my love of movies and board games goes way back to my childhood. What about you, Matt?
Very cool. Yeah, I'm 39, almost 40 in a couple of weeks here. I like to say I'm in the last year of my mid to late 30s. So I've got two boys, Charlie, who is 7 years old, Remy, who is 4 years old. I've been married 10 years. In a couple of weeks, my wife and I will have been married 10 years.
That's two big milestones, 40 and 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Hey, congrats.
Thank you. So 10 years ago, there was two big milestones.
That's
as
right.
well, getting married and turning 30. So as my career, I'm an ambulance dispatcher. So that can be an interesting, career and have some interesting days there. So also a huge sports fan. It's funny because we have like kind of three major hobby crossovers, you and
We
I
do.
but it didn't really make sense to try to shoehorn sports into our podcast. So we're going to leave that off the table.
We
We'll have a chat
might
here and
scratch that itch with a sports themed game or movie from time to
that's
time.
a good idea. So I'm primarily a major fan of hockey, so prototypical Canadian here, and a big fan of baseball as well. I'm a Toronto sports fan, so a huge fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs, big fan of the Toronto Blue Jays. I do
Just a
enjoy
sucker for punishment.
Exactly, yeah. It's a painful existence being a Toronto sports fan, let me tell you. So as of earlier this year, I can officially call myself also a board game designer. So
Woohoo!
I designed and self-published a board game with my partner, Steve Castle. And so you'll hear more about that as we kind of go along in the podcast. But kickstarted about a year ago, got some success there. We've now just finished fulfillment, so all of the backers have now received their games.
And the name of the game is Kyperium. Matt's being modest here, but I will definitely plug it today, and we'll circle back and talk more about it down the road. But congrats, Matt. That's awesome. You're a game designer.
Thank you. Yeah. So that's been fun, and it's kind of opened my eyes to a whole other branch of the hobby as well. So hopefully that'll add some value to the podcast with a little bit of insight on the designing / publishing side of things.
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about some of our specific likes in the two hobbies we're exploring?
Good idea.
So maybe this is primarily board game podcast. So why don't we start with board games? Maybe Matt, what are some of your favorite types of games, genres, themes, designers? When and how do you play games?
Right. Yeah. So I'm mostly a Euro gamer. I like the mid to heavy Euro games. I will play, light games, medium weight games. I'm kind of all over the map, but my preference is if I have the time to play something a little meatier. But I do believe there's a time and a place for every genre of game and every length and weight of game,
Agreed.
depending on what's going on. So love those filler games. I really like card games. Have a lot of fun with that. I love a good 2-player head-to-head experience as well. I love the idea of sitting down against somebody and then just trying to outsmart each other and have that tug of war. Again, 2 players not probably my preference, but that's kind of a close second to those heavy Euro games or mid to heavy Euro games. What I'm not a fan of is so much I don't solo game at all. I like to game for a social experience, mostly, and so I just not part of the hobby that I've jumped into. The odd time I'll do a little bit of a 2-handed thing when I'm learning a game, unpack a game, play a few rounds. I might even try solo variant if it's very, very close to the regular 2 or 3 or multiplayer game, just to learn it. But once I've gotten my head wrapped around the rules, I wrap it up there, and I definitely prefer to play with some friends. Similarly, not a huge fan of the co-op. I do like one versus all. I'm fine with that, but fully a team working against a system or working against a game, not my jam. I prefer the competition, the friendly competition between friends, and trying to outsmart each other. And that's for whatever reason the lane that I've kind of fallen into. In terms of designers, some of my favorites are Paul Dennen. You might know from Dune Imperium, from the Clank series, Wild Tiled West he did recently. Vladimir Suhi is one of my favorites. Underwater Cities is one of my all-time favorite games. Pulsar 2849 recently did Evacuation, which has bewildered me, but I'm still enjoying it. And Bruno Cathala is another one where he's so eclectic and so prolific. It's interesting. Like half the time I buy games, and then, oh my God, this one's Bruno Cathala too. This one's Bruno Cathala too.
Shocking.
Like every third game diverse. I buy, he's like involved. But I really like his style of pretty inventive ways of using different mechanisms. Big fan of that guy. In terms of theme, I typically lean more on the sci-fi side. I love that theme. Same thing with movies. Big sci-fi guy. Fantasy, I lean either way. Like, if you bring a fantasy game, it's not going to like jump out at me as my favorite thing. But if the game's great, I'm totally down to play. And there's definitely some fun stuff to explore there. But I definitely more of a sci-fi guy than a fantasy guy. Yeah, I guess that's about it in terms of gaming. What about you, Jason?
Yeah, so similar, a lot of crossover with our tastes and interests. I like the medium weight Euros as well. Some of my favorite mechanics. I like a good worker placement game, engine building, hand management, something that presents me with a lot of interesting decisions to make throughout the course of the game. There's nothing more satisfying when you're building a fun combo or you're thinking 4 or 5 turns down the road.
Those dopamine drips, yeah.
You're able to see something through to fruition. Because I enjoy that so much, I do not like games with a heavy amount of take that. A little bit's okay, like in your game you design, but nothing worse than you got all these nice plans and then someone grabs a magic card or something and is able to just totally derail your whole game. Yeah. And you spend an hour of a 2-hour game and the last hour is basically worthless because you can't do anything. So I try and avoid games with too much take that, with too much luck involved. Obviously, most games have a little bit of luck, but I like games where you can sort of mitigate your own luck by the decisions that you make. I do enjoy the odd co-op, but like you, I prefer a competitive game. I love one versus many games if they're well thought out, because there's still that competition there, sort of two teams and that interaction. But like you, right. I'm not a huge two-player fan. That goes back to when I was dating my wife. We would play 2-player games, and it got a little feisty from time to time. So my wife refuses to play 2-player games with me now, and that sort of stuck. So like I'll sit down and gladly play a 2-player game with you. But like you, I like the social aspects. So give me a 4, 5, 6-player game and just a memorable experience. Not only the board game, but the relational.
Yeah, I get the impression as we get to know each other better here that you really love like an immersive experience. You love the theme of a game.
Yeah, for me, it doesn't have to be sci-fi. Like, I don't like just a pasted-on theme. Like, sometimes there's just an abstract game with a pasted-on sci-fi theme, and it doesn't really feel authentic or immersive. Like, one of my favorite games is Viticulture. That's a winemaking game, and it's so immersive. It's like I'll play that with my gaming group, and we'll have a glass of wine, we'll have some sort of Italian music playing, and you literally feel like you're transported to Tuscany and you're on a vineyard.
Which is impressive for a Euro game.
Too. Yeah,
not all Euro games, the theme doesn't always come through.
Right. And so I kind of pick my Euro games based on how immersive the theme is as well. So some of that leads into some of my favorite designers. I mentioned Viticulture designer Jamie Stegmaier and Stonemaier Games. I appreciate the production design of his games, as well as the immersive theme in most of them. I like most of the Uwe Rosenberg games. I've got a lot of play out of. Wolfgang Kramer's another one of my favorite designers. Long list of games there that you can look them up at your discretion. But yeah, that's a little bit about my interest in the hobby, and I'm really looking forward to just learning some new games from you. Matt, and vice versa, and getting feedback from our listeners too. We look forward to getting your suggestions and feedbacks on which games, because I'm sure we both got a couple of blind spots that maybe our listeners can fill us in on.
For sure. Let's get into the movie side of things. So for me, similar to the board gaming, just makes sense. Sci-fi is my favorite genre. I'm a huge fan of sci-fi because for a few different reasons, like science fascinates me. Everything to do with space travel and astronomy and all that stuff. Yeah, just all that stuff just fascinates me, and just science in general. I'm a big fan of logic, and that comes through with my board game stuff. So science for me is logic, right? And so science fiction is kind of hits that interest for me, but also I find it fascinating because it's the best science fiction is often an allegory for what it is to be human,
right?
And that's where, for me, that's where the best science fiction lies, when it's really talking about the human condition and gives us a different way of to be able to look at each other and our own way of being. More of a genre guy than you, I think, which is nice because we have a lot of crossover. Same thing with board games. I think we have a lot of crossover, but in our Venn diagram, there's lots of stuff on the outside of the Venn diagram that is probably blind spots for both of us. So I think as we go on this journey, we're going to expand our kind of experiences with both film and games. So yeah, as I said, genre, I'm a big fan of horror, thriller, action, anything that is visceral and is going to pull me in and get me excited and get the blood pumping. I mostly stay away from like musical, pure romance. I love a good romance, but if that's all it is, it maybe doesn't quite strike it for me. But if there's a great romance within a film that has more than just the romance, but just the pure romance, same thing with comedy, pure comedy that's just there for like a laugh a minute, joke after joke, doesn't usually land with me.
It's got to be very well written and acted in that case, right?
Yeah. It's very rare that you get movies that are just pure comedies that stick with me long term. There's got to be other stuff going on there. It's got to be something else to bring me in and get me interested in the story and the characters, in the premise, etc. I do love me a good comedy, but it's just got to be a little bit more than just that, right? In terms of directors, so some of my absolute favorites are Quentin Tarantino, the Coen brothers, Denis Villeneuve, a huge fan of, especially recently. He's just kind of putting out masterpiece after masterpiece. I'm a huge fan of Rian Johnson, Christopher Nolan. Mike Flanagan is one of my kind of emerging. He's been doing this for a long time, but he's just becoming more in the
getting more popular.
Yeah, exactly. M. Night Shyamalan, I'm a big defender. There is a handful of really awful movies. Kind of, if you look in the middle of his filmography, his early stuff is fantastic. His later stuff has been flawed, but really interesting.
He takes big swings. Right?
Yeah,
so
and I just can't help but just love a really interesting premise. Even if it's not perfect, like if you're taking a huge swing like that, I throw a lot of respect in your direction. And Shyamalan does nothing but take big swings.
Yeah.
Jordan Peele is kind of an emerging horror guy that I'm absolutely loving his stuff.
Loved his latest one, Nope.
Yeah. Nope, yep. And then... some of the lesser known, maybe kind of indie guys are my favorites are Jeremy Saulnier, Jeff Nichols, Robert Eggers, who's been doing a lot of really interesting work lately as well.
Yeah, they got some interesting stuff coming out later this year that we'll have to revisit as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. Awesome. So yeah, similar. I love sci-fi as well for the reasons that you mentioned. I love that sci-fi provides like this big canvas that you can paint pretty much any story on. And even though it's set in a mostly futuristic fictional worlds, they really do cut to the core of what it means to be human and some of the psychological, relational themes in humanity. And so it really is a big canvas. You can go a lot of places. So some of my favorites are sci-fi films as well. I do like dramas. I'm becoming more in this stage of my life, more a fan of slower, more contemplative indie films. Shout out to our local Sudbury Indie Cinema here that I frequent. I love international films too. One of my favorite directors, Bong Joon-ho, when he won Best Picture for Parasite a few years ago, he kind of really was revolutionary in that, because he said, if you can get past the little subtitles on the bottom of your screen, there's a whole world outside of Hollywood that you can enjoy. And that's been my experience as well. So I love international films because it gives you an experience, not your own. You get to experience a different culture for $10-15 going to the theater, rather than buying a movie ticket or a plane ticket, to go halfway around the world. You can watch a movie set in Italy or China or Australia and feel like you've been there and immerse yourself in the culture. So that's a big part of the movie going experience for me. I'm a little pickier with my horror movies than you. I'm not a huge horror movie fan. It's got to be sort of high concept, like sci-fi that sort of explores or is an allegory for the human condition. Comedies as well. It's got to be smartly written. There's a ton of cheap comedies that hit Netflix. I'm just like, pass. MCU is kind of dead to me these days as well. I just find the whole superhero genre is kind of gone in the trash can. So
Endgame was the end game for me.
Endgame was the end game. But Blade's coming, so that gives me a little bit of hope. Some of my favorite directors, and this will, again, betray my fandom for international films and indie films as well as big budget films. So Terrence Malick is a filmmaker that maybe is my favorite filmmaker. He's done the movie Tree of Life, among others, Thin Red Line. His movies are very philosophical, and they really cut into some themes that I enjoy exploring in my own life. Again, Denis Villeneuve, our national treasure here in Canada, he just keeps pumping out masterpiece after masterpiece. Looking forward to what he does next. Martin Scorsese, of course, Christopher Nolan, you mentioned, Bong Joon-ho, I mentioned, and I'll throw out a female name too, Kelly Reichardt, for just a slower pace, contemplative films. I appreciate her. And of course, some of the classics that are deceased. A good Hitchcock movie. He's one of the greatest ever. Stanley Kubrick, of course, got to shout him out. Japanese director by the name of Kurosawa, Bergman, and Tarkovsky. And you can Google those names if you're not familiar with them, and you can go down the rabbit hole there for a long time. But those are some of my favorite directors, past and present.
Yeah, it's interesting because as I was saying earlier, there's that Venn diagram, and I dip a little bit into the indie international stuff. Every year I make like a top 10 list, and ultimately there's always like 2 or 3 of my top 10 that are either a foreign film or foreign language film or a small indie art house film. So I dip my toe a little bit in that stuff, but you're definitely the go-to guy on the pod when it comes to the more artsy stuff. That being said, I think we're going to make it a point to keep this podcast kind of broad and available and
more
accessible for
stuff.
The average moviegoer.
Yeah.
So
we may footnote it with some other suggestions, but the majority of the conversations will be the popular games and movies in the current sort of zeitgeist.
Yeah, I think the best way I could put it is we're going to do a lot of recommendations and talking about movies, and especially the ones that we're reviewing. But we're going to make sure that even if they are obscure films or films that you may not have heard of or that aren't in the popular kind of culture, that they're going to be films that are very watchable, that aren't hard to get through, right. And sometimes those films might be art house films or, foreign language films. For example, a breakthrough film like Parasite, my parents have watched Parasite. A lot of my family and people in my life that aren't huge film people have watched Parasite, Korean film. But a movie that has kind of transcended its language and was able to reach out to the rest of the world. So those types of movies we might highlight. Yeah,
with Parasite, like you mentioned earlier, it's got some comical moments embedded in it. It's got some relational romantic stuff embedded in it. It's got some suspense, but it's not all of that. It's all woven together in a beautifully written and a movie that speaks to the society we're in.
Yeah, so now that you have a little bit of an idea of who we are and what we like, hopefully you'll come along for the ride. Definitely follow us on Instagram at Dice Camera Action Pod. Search Dice Camera Action on Facebook. We've got a page going there. Follow us on YouTube. As I said, we're going to be we're going to try to record on video every podcast that we do as well, so that we can share it on YouTube, which you may or may not be watching now. Maybe not every episode, but we're also going to hopefully throw out some mini reviews of board games and movies onto YouTube as well. It's like under 5 minutes.
Yeah,
just
some
a quick
solo
reaction.
shorts. Maybe it's after you've just tried a little mini game, or maybe even myself from the movie theater when the crowd clears out, just as the credits are rolling, impressions. So we'll sprinkle in some of those as well. But the majority will be podcasts like this, where we spend approximately an hour talking about a game and a movie together.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear from you folks. So email us at dicecameraactionpod@gmail.com. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to hear more of from us. Also, if you have any recommendations for board game / movie pairings, or if you just want, based on our tastes, if there's anything you want to recommend, we check out and maybe talk on the pod, definitely send us an email, dicecameraactionpod@gmail.com.
Yeah, so just closing off our maiden voyage here, I was reminded of a quote from my favorite movie critic, Roger Ebert. And when it comes to getting around a table playing board games or going to a movie theater, there's something beautiful not only about the experience, but building relationships and maybe growing in empathy. This world is running short on empathy, and we need a little more of that. So Roger Ebert says these words. He says, "We are all born with a certain package. We are who we are, where we were born, who we were born as, how we were raised. We're kind of stuck inside that person. And the purpose of civilization and growth is to be able to reach out and empathize a little bit with other people. For me, the movies are like a machine that generates empathy, lets you understand a little bit more about different hopes, aspirations, dreams, and fears, helps us to identify with the people who are sharing this journey with us." And so on behalf of Matt and myself, thank you for sharing this journey with us. And we look forward to many more opportunities to be together here on Dice Camera Action. Take care.
Cheers.